Professor mocked the student for years but didn't know he was the one writing his own son's exams. Then this happened. The classroom was always loud with laughter whenever Professor Harris made one of his usual remarks. His voice carried across the lecture hall, sharp and dismissive, always directed at the same person, Marcus. "Marcus, why do you even bother showing up?" Professor Harris sneered one afternoon, leaning against the wooden desk with folded arms. "You'll never be half as smart as my son, Ethan. Pay attention, maybe you'll learn something for once." The room erupted in muffled chuckles. Some students hid their smiles, others shook their heads in pity. Marcus just sat there, his jaw tight, his notebook filled with scribbled notes. He had learned to keep his face still, like a mask. Inside, though, his heart was on fire. If only they knew. If only the professor knew that his brilliant son, the pride of his lectures, was not the one answering those difficult exam questions. Marcus was. Ethan Harris, the golden boy of the class, the one everyone admired, had been paying Marcus to write his exams for him. And Marcus had agreed. Not because he wanted to. Not because he enjoyed watching Ethan bask in praises he didn't deserve. But because he had no choice. His dream of becoming a doctor at another school was hanging by a thread. The tuition fees were crushing him, and his mother back home could barely afford rent, let alone support his education. Every dollar he earned from writing Ethan's exams pushed him one step closer to keeping that dream alive. Still, the humiliation cut deep. One day after class, Ethan walked up to him, all charm and arrogance. His designer jacket hung loosely over his shoulders, and he wore that smug smile everyone seemed to adore. "Good work, Marcus," Ethan whispered, slipping an envelope into his hand like it was nothing. "Same deal next semester, yeah? You're making my dad proud." Marcus clenched the envelope so tightly his knuckles went white. He wanted to scream, to tell Ethan that pride didn't belong to him, that the answers weren't his. But instead, Marcus just nodded, swallowing his words like bitter medicine. Later that night, he sat in his small apartment, staring at his reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink. His voice trembled as he whispered to himself. "Why do I have to be the shadow behind someone else's light?" The tears came slowly, hot and heavy. He opened the envelope. Inside was the money he needed, money that kept his dream alive, money that chained him to silence. And in that silence, Marcus knew something had to give. The following week, the class was buzzing. Professor Harris was in rare form, pacing at the front like he owned the air everyone breathed. His son, Ethan, sat in the front row, arms folded, smirking like he already knew all the answers. Professor Harris slammed a stack of papers on the desk. "The results are in," he announced. "And once again, my son Ethan is leading the pack. Outstanding performance. As for the rest of you, well, some of you should reconsider if this is the right path for you." His eyes landed on Marcus. That same cold smirk spread across his face. "Marcus, maybe you should be taking lessons from Ethan. He's proof of what hard work and intelligence look like." The class chuckled again. Marcus's ears burned. His hands curled into fists under the desk. He kept his head down, scribbling nonsense in his notebook to distract himself. But then, something unexpected happened. A girl from the back row raised her hand. Her name was Claire. She was quiet most days, but her voice was sharp now. "Professor, forgive me, but don't you think it's strange?" she said. Professor Harris stopped mid-step. "Strange?" "Yes," Claire continued, her eyes darting between Ethan and Marcus. "It's just, during discussions, Marcus always has the right answers. He explains concepts better than most of us, even Ethan. But then, on paper, it's always Ethan who shines. Don't you think that's unusual?" The room went silent. All eyes turned to Marcus. His chest tightened, his breath caught in his throat. He felt naked, exposed, like someone had ripped the mask off his face. Ethan quickly laughed, waving his hand. "Come on, Claire. Marcus just likes to talk. Not everyone can back it up in exams." "Right, Marcus?" Marcus looked up. Ethan's eyes locked on his, a warning hidden behind the fake smile. A message clear as glass, "Don't you dare." Marcus forced a weak laugh. "Yeah. I just talk too much, I guess." But Claire's stare lingered. She wasn't convinced. Later that day, Marcus found himself in the library. His chest was heavy, his thoughts racing. He tried to focus on his medical textbooks, his real dream, but Ethan's smug face and his father's cruel words kept flashing in his mind. Then Claire's voice cut through his thoughts. "You don't have to lie to protect him," she said softly, sliding into the seat across from him. Marcus froze. His pen slipped from his hand. "What are you talking about?" he muttered. Claire leaned in closer, her eyes serious. "I see it, Marcus. The way you answer questions in class, the way you explain things nobody else understands. Ethan doesn't have that. You do. Tell me the truth, are you the one writing his exams?" Marcus's heart pounded like a drum. His hands trembled under the table. He wanted to deny it, to laugh it off. But her voice, steady and gentle, made him feel like someone finally saw him. He whispered, almost choking on the words. I don't have a choice. Claire's eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. No choice? Marcus, this isn't just about you. This could ruin your future. And his too. Marcus rubbed his forehead, his voice breaking. You don't understand, Claire. I need the money. My tuition at the medical school, it's drowning me. My mom works double shifts just to pay rent. If I don't get this money, I'm done. My dream of becoming a doctor dies right here. His words hung heavy in the silence of the library. Claire sat back, torn between sympathy and anger. But Marcus, she whispered, you're building someone else's future while destroying your own. You think Ethan will ever admit the truth? He'll take all the glory, and you'll stay invisible. Marcus's throat tightened. I know. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the stillness. Well, isn't this touching? They both turned. Ethan stood at the end of the aisle, his arms folded, a sly grin painted across his face. His voice dripped with mockery. Marcus, my man, you've been talking too much. And Claire, he smirked, looking her up and down, you've been snooping where you shouldn't. Claire stood, unshaken. So it's true. You've been using him. Ethan chuckled. Using? No. Let's call it partnership. I pay, he delivers. Everyone wins. Well, except maybe Marcus's pride. Marcus lowered his head, shame burning his skin. But then Claire stepped closer to Ethan, her voice sharp like broken glass. You're a fraud. And one day, people are going to see it. Ethan's smile faltered for a split second before he leaned toward Marcus, his tone turning icy. Remember what I said. You keep quiet, or everything falls apart, for you. Don't think your little sob story will save you when the truth comes out. You'll be the one expelled, not me. Marcus felt the weight of the threat press down on him like chains. His fists trembled, but his voice stayed low. I've carried you long enough, Ethan. Ethan's smirk returned, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes now. Careful, Marcus. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Claire's hand touched Marcus's arm gently, grounding him. You don't need him, she said softly. You're smarter than all of this. Smarter than him. For the first time, Marcus didn't feel entirely alone. But as Ethan walked away, whistling casually, Marcus knew one thing, the fragile balance was cracking. The secret wouldn't stay buried much longer. The next exam day arrived. The lecture hall was filled with nervous energy, pens tapping, books flipping, whispers floating in the air. Marcus sat near the back, his head bowed, the test paper in front of him untouched. Professor Harris strode in proudly, followed by Ethan, who looked as if the test was already won. He smirked at Marcus on his way to the front row, mouthing a single word, ready? Marcus's stomach twisted. His hand trembled as he picked up his pen. He wasn't writing for himself today, he was writing for Ethan, again. Claire sat a few rows over, watching him. She caught his eye. Her expression was steady, filled with something Marcus hadn't felt in a long time, belief. Belief in him. Not Ethan. Him. Begin, Professor Harris announced, slapping the desk. The hall fell silent except for the scratching of pens. Marcus's mind raced. He could feel Ethan's eyes on him, burning like a warning. He started answering questions, his thoughts sharp, his handwriting quick. This was what he was good at, solving, explaining, understanding. His brain flowed effortlessly, but his chest felt like it was caving in. Halfway through, he froze. His pen stopped moving. His reflection flickered in the smooth surface of the desk, tired eyes, heavy heart. Why am I still letting him steal from me? Claire's voice from the library echoed in his head, you're building someone else's future while destroying your own. The clock ticked loudly. Students scribbled. Ethan leaned back casually, certain his secret weapon, Marcus, was doing all the heavy lifting. But then, Marcus did something no one expected. He stood up. His chair screeched against the floor. Heads turned. Professor Harris looked annoyed. Marcus? Sit down and finish your exam. Marcus's voice shook at first, but it grew stronger with each word. I'm not finishing this exam, not for him. A ripple of whispers swept across the room. Ethan sat up, his smug smile vanishing. What the hell are you doing? He hissed. Marcus turned, his eyes locked on Professor Harris. Sir, you've mocked me for being a failure. You've called your son the smartest in this class. But every grade you've been praising doesn't belong to him. They're mine. I've been the one writing Ethan's exams. Gasps filled the room. Professor Harris's face drained of color. What are you saying? Marcus's chest heaved, but he didn't back down. Check the handwriting. Check the papers. Ask any of the students here who explains the concepts when they don't understand. It's me, not Ethan. I only did it because I needed the money to pay my tuition at medical school. But today, I'm done being his shadow. The hall was dead silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air like thunder waiting to break. Ethan shot up from his seat, his voice trembling with rage. He's lying. He's just jealous, Dad. He's trying to ruin me. But Ethan's voice cracked, and for the first time, the golden boy didn't look so golden anymore. Claire stood too, her voice clear and fearless. He's telling the truth. I've seen it. I've heard it. Marcus is the real mind behind those exams. All eyes swung between Marcus, Ethan, and Professor Harris. The perfect image of the professor's brilliant son was collapsing in front of everyone. For a moment, no one breathed. The air in the lecture hall was heavy, like everyone was waiting for lightning to strike. Professor Harris's lips parted, but no words came out. His eyes darted from Marcus to Ethan, confusion clouding his face. Ethan, tell me this isn't true, he finally managed, his voice unsteady. Dad, come on. Ethan's voice cracked, louder than he intended. You're really going to believe him? He's broke, desperate, and now he's trying to drag me down with him. But the way Ethan's hands shook gave him away. Students whispered frantically. Wait, could Marcus really be the one? That would explain a lot. Man, I always wondered how Ethan never answered in class but aced the tests. The whispers grew louder, rolling through the hall like a wave. Marcus's chest pounded, but he forced his voice steady. I never wanted this. I didn't want your money, Ethan. I wanted a future. I wanted to become a doctor. And for that, I sacrificed my pride, my dignity, while you stood there pretending to be what you're not. Claire stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. We've all seen it. Marcus is the one who explains the lessons when even the professor's explanations don't make sense. He's the one tutoring half the class. But Ethan? He never lifts a finger. The room gasped again. All eyes now turned to Ethan, his face red, his jaw trembling. Shut up! Ethan barked, slamming his hand on the desk. You're just jealous losers. I worked hard for everything I've gotten. No, you didn't, Marcus shot back, his voice fierce now. You bought it. And I sold it because I was desperate. But not anymore. Not today. The hall fell quiet again. Professor Harris's face had gone pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, his authority crumbling in front of his students. His proudest claim, the brilliance of his son, was unraveling right before his eyes. He finally spoke, his voice low, strained. Ethan, is it true? Ethan's lips trembled. For the first time, he had no quick comeback, no easy lie. The silence was louder than any confession. The students stared, waiting, holding their breath. The golden boy's mask was slipping, and Marcus stood there, no longer in his shadow. The silence in the lecture hall felt endless. Professor Harris's hand trembled as he pressed it against the desk. His voice was heavy, broken, as he finally spoke. Ethan, after all the years I spent boasting about you, his words cracked. Is this who you really are? Ethan's eyes darted around the room, searching for support, but all he found were cold stares. His classmates who once admired him now looked at him like a stranger. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time, Ethan Harris had no defense. The whispers turned to open voices. I knew it. Man, Marcus was the real genius all along. All those times he helped us study. Marcus stood there, not proud, not smug, just free. For the first time in years, he wasn't hiding. His hands were still shaking, but inside, something heavy had lifted off his chest. Professor Harris swallowed hard, shame burning in his face. His voice was faint when he said, Marcus, I owe you an apology. Marcus met his eyes, his voice steady, calm. No, Professor. You don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself the truth. He turned, gathering his book slowly, the entire room still watching him. Claire stepped beside him, her hand brushing against his arm in quiet support. As Marcus walked out of the lecture hall, the whispers grew louder, the image of the perfect son shattered forever. Ethan sat frozen, his head buried in his hands, while his father stood speechless, his pride crushed. Outside, the air felt different. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of gold and red. Marcus inhaled deeply, his chest rising with a freedom he hadn't felt in years. Claire walked with him, her voice soft but firm. You did the right thing. Marcus gave a small, tired smile. For once, I chose myself. He tightened his grip on his worn-out textbooks. Ahead of him, the path was uncertain, but it was his. His own. For the first time, Marcus felt like he was no longer a shadow. He was stepping into the light. And this time, he would not give it away.